Hi everyone, William here and welcome back to another on-demand video. Now you may notice we're not in our typical office setting. That is because we are currently on Eid break, so from behalf of the entirety of the AIREV team, we wish you and your loved ones an Eid Mubarak. Now, moving on to today's video, we've got quite an exciting use case here for you. So it's a very simple agent that we're building inside of the OnDemand platform today, but what's really special is how we're bringing it outside of OnDemand, turning it into a full-time 24/7 personal assistant chatbot that you can communicate with via Telegram, and also deploying this onto OnDemand's serverless applications so that it is available at all times without any dependencies or any sort of running on any form of server. So without any further ado, we're going to jump straight into the OnDemand platform, where we'll start off by configuring our initial agent. So inside of the OnDemand platform here, we're actually only going to be taking advantage of two different tools. So those are going to be the Zoho mail, which I'm pulling up right now, and Perplexity. Now Perplexity, if any of you have been on the platform recently, you will have noticed that has become an embedded agent with all of our LLMs, so you no longer need to manually add it in order to have internet access. However, the Zoho mail, we do need to add this in, and it's very simple and straightforward. Now, for the sake of this demo, I'll be using Zoho, as that is what my work account is under, and those are the emails that I primarily want to be able to pull and also reply to. However, we do have support for Gmail that functions exactly the same. However, no one wants to see my Gmail inbox, as it's just a bunch of online shopping receipts. So we'll be working with Zoho, and in order to configure that, all you need to provide is your from address and your refresh token. So this then ties it directly to the account that you want it to be able to read the emails from, see the emails from, and also reply to from that account. Now, I already configured my agent earlier on, so we'll go ahead and add that in. I believe it's agent 7201. And you can see I've only got the Zoho mail tool added here because Perplexity is embedded with all LLMs, as I mentioned earlier. Now, the only other configurations that I have done here is under advanced. You can look at my system prompt or my fulfillment prompt, where I've specified that you are a day-to-day personal assistant chatbot that has the ability to access the web and also my email inbox, so on and so forth. Ultimately, your job is to be useful and always offer help where necessary. Now we can go ahead and we can actually test this with a few sample queries. So first and foremost, I'm just going to say, fetch the last 3 emails from, and then I'll put in my other email as I set this up ahead of time, and we'll ask it to return these for me. So we'll go ahead and we'll run this, and I'll check back in with you as soon as it is complete. Amazing. So that has fetched those 3 successfully. The one that we're most concerned about here is the upcoming testing that I sent myself earlier today. These 2 are just simply from demos that I have ran earlier in the week. But now what we're going to do is just to test that the memory is consistent throughout. We're just going to ask it to reply to the same email address discussing the upcoming testing and let him know I've acknowledged this and we'll send an update by end of the day. Also to make it professional. So we'll run this and we'll see again how the Zoho mail is called upon, and then we'll check the results. Fantastic, and it has now replied to that email for me, sent a nice, well-formatted reply, and I know that I've received it as I just felt my pocket vibrate with the notification. And now finally, the last edge case that we do want to test for this is just its internet access and availability. So we can say, what is the weather in Dubai like at this moment in time? Now this should call on Perplexity instead of Zoho, which we should see in just 1 second. We can see how the LLM is then thinking. It's passing in the current timestamp and today's date so that it can get the correct information. And as we can see, it is calling upon Perplexity, which is fantastic. And as I showcased earlier, this is not a tool that I've added in. As mentioned, it is embedded with all LLMs, and it's now given us the current weather conditions in Dubai. So this is great. Now that we have internet access as well as our email inbox, we have a personal assistant that has the ability to read our emails, send our emails, and also general internet access. So this could be for things such as the weather or even retrieving the news. Now, I do want to preface from here that the entire framework for this video is built for a personal chatbot of this caliber. However, it is designed to be applicable for any sort of agent that you build. If you're trying to turn this into a 24/7 fully available personal assistant accessible through Telegram, then this will work with any of your AI agents. We're just building it around a personal assistant for today's sake. Now we are going to move to the second step here, and that is to actually get the code. Now we'll be using Python, so I can go ahead and select this language, and all I need to do here is simply click on copy. For the time being, we are now fully concluded with the on-demand side of things, and we can now move into our own text editor, where we'll now fill in the correct placeholder values before we then come back into on-demand to deploy this onto serverless. Now we are in Visual Studio Code, and you can see on the left-hand side in the Explorer all of the files that we need in order to make this work. Now we have gone ahead and made this a little bit easier for those of you following at home, and I've already put together a GitHub repository with all of these files. Now the only thing that you are going to need to do is to clone this, fork it, open it into your own text editor, and once you're in your own text editor, the only important files here are going to be the .environment. So if we take a look at the environment example, this will give you a list of all of the different variables that we need to put the corresponding information alongside. So for me, that is in the .environments field. So we need the Telegram bot token, the allowed user ID, the on-demand API key, the on-demand external user ID, agent IDs, on-demand endpoint ID, on-demand fulfillment prompt, on-demand temperature, top presence penalty, webhook URL, and finally the port. Now the first two here, Telegram bot token and Telegram allowed user ID, we get those from Telegram itself, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. So once you are in Telegram, all you need to do is simply click search, look for the BotFather, you can see it right here, and then you can go ahead and start the conversation by sending /new bot. Then you'll need to give it a name. I gave this on-demand personal assistant. Then we'll choose a username, and it has to end in bot. So I just went on-demand _assistant _bot. And then you can see we've got the access token, which is the Telegram bot token we're looking at inside of Visual Studio Code. Once we have this, we then need to get the allowed user ID. And in order to get this, we can simply head on back. We then head to user info. The ID for this is @userinfobot. Then we simply click start, and then it will give us our ID. These are the only two things we need to get from inside of Telegram in order to make this work. So now we have all of the information we need from our chatbot. We go ahead and paste it in here accordingly. Now, typically you would only need the Telegram bot token and your on-demand API key, and potentially even your external user ID. And then the final one would be the webhook URL. The on-demand top penalty, temperature, fulfillment prompt, endpoint ID, and agent IDs I've added in here so that this GitHub file is completely universal, and you can plug it in immediately and use it alongside whatever you've already configured. All you need to do is replace these values with that you have inside of your own on-demand account. Now, the webhook URL, you're not going to have this immediately. You get this after we deploy it in serverless, and then we'll come back and bring it in. But this follows the same structure every single time. So you can see where it's called Telegram bot endpoint. That is just the name for the endpoint that I configure. But once we have now set up this entire environment file, next up is to push all of this back to our GitHub. Once that's done, we can then jump back into on-demand to deploy this into serverless, and we'll do that right now. So on the left-hand side underneath Tools and Deployment, you'll see Serverless Applications. Now we need to configure both a repository configuration and an endpoint for this. We'll start off with the repository, as this is very straightforward. So you go ahead and create a repository here. You'd give it the name, paste in the URL from your own GitHub, and you'd also need to give it an access token. As you can see right here how I have configured it. So I've given my repository a name, On-Demand Telegram Bot. It's a public repository, which correlates perfectly with how it looks inside of my GitHub account. I've then given it the repository URL, and then also the access token that I get from GitHub. Now to show you how to get that, inside of GitHub on the right-hand side, you can go out to Settings, scroll all the way down on the left to Developer Settings, and then you could go and create a personal access token. You need to generate a classic one. You can see I've got this one right here, and we could generate a brand new one. Once we have generated this, we then just need to paste this into the access token here, click on Save Repository, and wait for that. That should only take approximately 30 seconds before we then move into the configuration aspect. Once we're in configuration, we can go ahead and create a brand new configuration. I'll just edit this one so you can see how it looks. We've given our application a name, which is Telegram Personal Assistant. We've selected our repository that this is pulling information from. we've kept this default, the branch name, as main, and we've just added that it is a Docker file. Now for the application build mode, we have manual and auto build. I like having auto build on because whenever I push anything to my GitHub repository, it will automatically reinitialize my final endpoint, meaning I don't have to do anything. I could simply push it, close my laptop, and then the assistant will be available within 2 to 4 minutes. So again, we can then go ahead and save this configuration, and then we finally move into our endpoint. So again, we could create a brand new endpoint. I'm going to edit this one so you can see all of the details in one go. We will then select our configuration, which is Telegram Personal Assistant. We can then select our environment, whether it's development, production, or staging. In this case, it is production. We'll then give the endpoint name, as we saw in the base URL earlier. Now, for the first time generation, the endpoint URL is not going to be visible here. That isn't visible until after the endpoint is initialized, but we'll get to that in just a second. So now we are adding in our target port. You may see this as familiar from our environment file. However, we now have all of our environment variables, and we don't need to specify the port as we've done that here. So now all this is a simple case of copying and pasting. So you can see our key name and the value here. So looking over at our environment file, you can see our key name and then the field right here. We go ahead and copy and paste all of this information for all of the different values and variables. We can then choose our instant type. Since this is just for me to use and it's on a very small scale, we can go with just the lightest form. And then again, we have left the minimum and maximum instance count as defaults. Once that is done, we can then click save, or it should show deploy if this is the first time you are doing this. And then you just need to wait. This will say initializing initially, and then it will eventually move to succeeded. If for whatever reason it doesn't, you can see the logs right here, which will give you full insight into exactly how your serverless application is operating. So you can see we've got a couple of issues right now. I have tested this ahead of time, and I know that this is working. This is just due to the formatting. It's reading it as an error, but if yours looks the same, do not worry, do not be concerned. So long as it shows as success or succeeded in the endpoint configuration fields, then you are ready to go. So now we have covered building the agent itself, testing it in the playground to ensure it operates and behaves exactly as expected, exporting the code, replacing all of the different environment variables to coincide exactly with the information that we need, pushing this to GitHub, and then deploying it as a serverless application. So now all the hard work is done, and the final step here is to actually test the Telegram bot yourself on your mobile phone. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So now we are in Telegram, we have opened up our personal assistant chatbot. I've simply sent start, and now it's ready to receive any queries. So we'll go ahead and we'll ask it the exact same as we did in the playground. Fetch the last 3 emails from, and then myself. We'll go ahead and run this, and we should see at the top of the screen, typing. That shows that it is received our request, and in just one moment, we will receive a reply. Amazing. We have now just got the reply through. Here are the last 3 emails from William at SchoolHack. First one, Zoho X OnDemand testing. This email was sent via OnDemand and routed through Zoho. Upcoming testing from myself, the same email we saw earlier, and then an executive meeting brief as well. So now that we have checked this, we can now send a follow-up. We'll do the exact same one that we did in the playground, which is send an email to the same address, discussing the upcoming testing. Let him know I have acknowledged this, and we'll send an update by end of day. Make sure it's professional. Make sure it's professional. We can now go ahead and send this over. We can see it's typing at the top of the screen, which is amazing. That means it's processing our request, passing it over to OnDemand. We'll then generate a reply, and it's being fed straight back into Telegram for us. And what's amazing about this is the fact that we now no longer need to have this backend service running on our device itself, because we have deployed it on serverless. So with OnDemand, we've not only built the AI agent, but we've also then gone ahead and deployed it to make it accessible from anywhere at all times. And we've already got our reply, which is fantastic. And you can see the body of the email. Hi, William. Thank you for the update regarding the upcoming testing. I'd like to confirm I've received your note. Amazing. Fantastic. Current progress on the end-to-end testing. Fantastic. Best regards, William White. And then again, it's prompting me, is there anything else you'd like help with? Draft a follow-up, set a reminder, or look into prep materials for the Cisco demo. Now this is super cool. We've now checked that it is entirely functional, it can access my inbox, and it can email on my behalf, which is exactly what we need it to do. Anyway, that's going to be all from my side. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to catching you in the next one.